The only people who can actually create money are the central bank. The only way they inject that into the system is by making loans. That means that within the economy, money always balances perfectly debt. But anyone, including central banks, including individuals, can make loans. And when loans are made, that means essentially many people are accessing the same money. I'm saying, I've got £1,000, but if you want to use it, you can use it. We can both use the same £1,000. But it doesn't take that balance out of the system. Money is always equal to debt. So that raises a question, right? If central banks can only lend money, they can't give money, then who can give money into the economy? And the answer is, really anybody can give money into the economy. If I borrow money from you and then give it away, then I'm in debt. And since you know that debt equals money, if I go into debt, then the rest of the system has positive money. You see what I'm saying? That makes sense. But how the government...
No, we don't.
No.
They can borrow enormous amounts of money and give it out. And then what that does is it, in a sense, puts the rest of the system out of balance. It means that the rest of the system is suddenly no longer adding up to zero. So since the beginning of COVID, the government has increased its debt by £700 billion. And since we know that the system as a whole, debt always equals total money, we know that the rest of the individuals in the game have to have £700 billion. They must have £700 billion. So we know that the average UK adult, because there's about 50 million UK adults, must have an extra £14,000 since the beginning of COVID. We know these things with certainty.
Wow. You see where like bad assumptions get you into deeply, deeply erroneous conclusions?
Yeah,
he's thinking
this
now.
is confusing, honestly. I'm struggling to follow what he's fucking saying. He's taking so long to get to the point, and he's like going in circles. And
he's definitely circling the drain a lot too, which is annoying. That's why I said next point earlier. It's like, move on.
Yeah.
But he just made the claim because the UK government has increased its debt load from zero or by a factor of 700 billion or whatever the number was, that because all debt equals all money, that we know the private sector now has $7 billion more in money. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. What you could say is that, okay, UK government issued their Treasury, whatever the UST equivalent is.
Yeah.
And they borrowed 700 billion currency of freshly counterfeited currency from the ECB, the European Central Bank. And now they're spending that money.
Right.
Right. They're buying things, passing laws, legislative acts, et cetera, doing whatever the things governments do with money.
Yeah.
Go to war and lie to you and steal from you and all that.
Funding transgender studies in Bangladesh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Funding transgender studies on hippos in Bangladesh. It's like, stuff like that. Okay, then that currency will then enter the economy because the government spent it. But what is this doing? Again, because you didn't increase goods or services.
It's diluting.
You're increasing the prices of goods and services. The people that feel that pain the most are the ones that receive that new currency last.
Yes.
Right? Typically the poor, people living on fixed income, and others that don't have assets that are benefiting from the price inflation due to the currency counterfeiting.
Yes, the non-property owning class.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's why central banking via this mechanism transfers wealth from the poor to the rich.
Yeah. And then the property owning class.
And not, not just it does do the rich indirectly in the way you described, like the property owning class, because their
assets go up and then they get to leverage those assets to go buy more assets, creating a feedback loop and further bifurcating the society.
Yes. But they're still getting victimized in the system, albeit less.
Yeah.
Right? The ultimate beneficiary of this is the shareholder of the central bank.
So how does the property owning class get victimized?
Well, the prices of their assets are still going up, so they're enjoying the inflation that's going up, but they're not the first ones to receive the money. The first ones to receive the money, which is the government that's spending it directly.
Spend, which is like stealing. They have this money that they didn't earn, and they get to then pull goods or services out of the marketplace.
They're spending
in an unfair way because they're the recipients of that newly minted currency.
They're spending money, unearned money.
Yeah.
Basically, yes. Which, you want to really get into the rabbit hole, all government money is unearned.
Stolen somehow.
Everything the state has is stolen. Everything it says is a lie. That's Nietzsche. Worth thinking about, but beyond the scope of this conversation.
And it's just a question of who has that money. It's just a question of who has that money. So, and then this sort of brings us onto other questions like what is QE, what does the central bank do? And I think we'll go into them in future videos. But to summarize, at its heart, money is a loan from the central bank. And then that circulates throughout the economy.
Wow.
Some people go into debt, which means other people go into credit. The total amount of debt always equals the total amount of credit. So we know, for example, the average UK adult has, was it £30,000 of mortgage debt?
I think
We did that in the debt.
You see the move he's made too? In the beginning, he was saying total money equals total debt. Now he's in this sly move where he's saying total credit equals total debt. Well, that is a tautology because debt and credit are two sides of the same coin. It's debt if you owe it, it's credit if it's due to you.
Yes.
Of course, total credit always equals total debt. Okay, yeah. Total up equals total down. Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. But money does not equal credit, right? Again, on the balance sheet, we have cash and cash equivalents. Then we have credit instruments, right? Accounts receivable, notes receivable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're not the same thing. So he's done this, like he did this initial conflation and then he just sort of like slides in like, oh, all money equals credit and all credit equals debt. And he's just like, it's slippery.
It is. Do you think he's so confused because he's just trying to make sense of Keynesian economics?
I don't know, dude. I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen this guy, but he's just not. You have to be precise with your terminology if you're going to understand this stuff.
Well, and it's dangerous in some sense because he's influencing the thought around a lot of people who are looking to figure out how to stop getting screwed by the system.
Yeah, and he's perpetrating pseudoscientific thinking, basically.
Yeah,
right, you might as well be telling us that the sun goes around the earth. I mean, it's wrong. It's definitively wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like heliocentrism is true. Earth is not the center of the solar system. We know that now.
Yeah.
But there was a while when a lot of people fought about that and argued about it.
Yeah.
And, it took
Some
a while.
people still do today.
Yeah. But so he's literally, advocating for pseudoscience.
So we know that the average UK adult must have £30,000 of mortgage credit. We know that the government has increased its debt by £14,000 per adult. So we know the average UK adult has increased their credit by £14,000.
So crazy. Do you hear this? We've increased government debt by £14,000. So every household is now £14,000 richer. They have £14,000 more credit. Are you like the conclusion he's reaching is actually insane because he makes that fundamental, he has an axiomatic mistake.
Yeah.
That he's conflating all money equals all debt. And you lead to utterly illogical outcomes like this.
Hopefully I'm communicating that there are these two different conceptions of money. One of which includes all debt, includes all credit, and always adds up to zero. And one of which is about total amount of loans in the system. They're both important. If there are loads and loads of loans in the system, what will happen is the interest rate will fall. But it's not the same as the government going into debt and giving huge amounts of money out. Basically, the central bank can lend money, and that brings interest rates down. But the government can give money, and that causes cash accumulation amongst individuals. Since the beginning of COVID, the government has increased its debt by 700 billion. We know that cash has accumulated amongst individuals. It's not the same as QE, right? There's two things happening here. QE is another form of central bank lending. It's more loans in the system. I think we'll do that in the next video, QE. This £700 billion is not QE. This is the total amount of government debt accumulated since COVID. It's money that the government has either printed or borrowed and given out. But either way, if I print money and give it to you, you have more money. If I borrow money from you and give it to you, you have more money because money and money owed to you are very similar things.
Did you just say if I borrow money and give it to you?
Yeah, it's like there's a word salad kind of.
I
It's
can't
like kind
believe-
of going in circles.
Yeah, this is very shockingly bad.
If I borrow money and give it back to you, you have the money and you have the money owed to you. So, do you think that's clear?
No.
I want people to understand. Money is, it's a balanced system. It's a balanced point system. We know it. Some people are in debt. Some people are in credit. If you have...
But that's simply not true. You can have an economy with no debt. Right? We could all just go be farmers and just trade crops and never owe each other anything.
Yeah.
And we would have assets and we'd have equity in our business and we'd have no debt.
Yeah.
Okay? This guy is like, just use your intuition, anyone.
It seems as if he's trying to make sense of fractional reserve lending and central banking, but he's taking a long time to run in circles.
Yeah, but then he's saying,
I don't even understand what he's saying.
But then he's saying, let's not talk about it until the next video. You're right. He's being descriptive of central banking in a way. But then he's trying to say, let's not talk about central banking and quantitative easing until the next video. It's like, that's all you're describing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about we talk about what money is in this video, which is the title of the video. Like, what is money? So why don't you just tell me, Gary, what gold is? I'm sure you're not going to talk about it, but let's see.
Debt, somebody has credit. If the government is in debt, somebody has credit. And it's a system of who owes money to who. And of course, the people who are in debt constantly need to find ways to get that money from the people who are in credit. Otherwise, they can't pay their debts back. So really, it's a points-based system. It's perfectly balanced throughout society. But the problem is, in many cases, it is a small amount of very wealthy people who are in credit, and it's the government and a large amount of mortgage-holding individuals who are in debt. So it creates an imbalance. And the people who are in debt, such as the government, which means the taxpayer, and families who have mortgages, have to constantly find money to pay to the rich. But that's it. Money is a balanced system. It comes from the central bank. Commercial banks, they can't create money, but they can create loans. And if you create loans, it in some senses seems like more money being made because people have money, even though they have debt against it, have access to money. But crucially, what is most important for this channel and for the message of this channel, that £700 billion is the increase in government debt, which means we know there has been an increase in private holding of money to the extent of £14,000 for every adult in the country, which is increasing.
I don't know. I mean, he seems
I think
he's got drug addict vibes, kind of.
I think maybe something's going on here.
He's an interesting individual.
Why is he repeating himself so many times? If this is an educational video, like, aren't you supposed to move the point along, Gary? Like, you've now said that 4 times.
This feels like an extension of fiat, which is making everyone dumber.
Yeah. We've watched enough fiat politicians today. My brain cells are cooked enough, Gary.
Yeah, you doing
we
okay?
logged in here to learn something.
I was just thinking to myself, like, oh, man, Robert, I hope he's all right.
My brain cells are sizzling.
In most cases, that money is sitting in the bank accounts of wealthy individuals, which means your average wealthy individual has accumulated £100,000, £200,000 extra cash since the beginning.
Like, what a slap in the face. How many people lived through COVID? Probably everyone listening to this right now. It's only 5 years ago. And he's saying, all right, okay, every increase in government debt is an increase in the cash holdings of every individual in society. So the United States government printed about $8 trillion. What's 8 trillion divided by 46 million U.S. households? I can't do that math that quick, but it's some large amount of money.
Yeah.
Does everyone feel some large amount of money richer since COVID? Like, when the government printed that money, did it just show up in your bank account? Were you just like, oh, I have all this extra money, thanks. You got a check for $3,500.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, I think I might know this math actually. It was something like $46,000 per U.S. household was printed. But each household only received a check for $3,000 or $4,000.
Right.
Okay, so where did the other $42,000 go? It went into the hands of politicians and all the cronies.
Yeah.
So it's a heist in broad daylight. This guy's like hand waving over that, saying that, oh, whatever increase there is in government debt, that just magically shows up in the hands of individuals in the private sector. Like, what? What are you talking about? Like, we just lived through that, and that's not true.
Yeah. See,
we can stay out of the theoretical. We can just be like, what are you talking about? That just happened.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Gary is, he's confusing me, honestly. I feel dumber than when we started today, but.
GarysEconomics.
Yeah, I can go home and, I don't know, sleep with my head on the Bitcoin standard and recover, dude.
This is not money they've borrowed. It's money they've essentially been given, ultimately from government. And this is how it was very easy to predict at the very beginning of COVID that there would be
money given to them from government. I'm going to say it again. Everything the state says is a lie. Everything it has is stolen. The government has never given anyone anything ever in the history of governments. Governments have stolen from Peter and given to Paul. Mm-hmm. That is the only thing a government can do.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's arrived at this conclusion of government just magically giving everyone something through like this magical accounting entry, we just increase the lever debt and increase everyone's lever money and we're all better off.
Well, and his big message, what I have seen is he's all about tax the rich. So what he wants to do is the government to confiscate, steal more, and then redistribute that.
Yeah. So you are a Marxist. Why don't you just say that, Gary?
massive increase in asset prices. And I think what's quite interesting is now, so we're filming this in the middle of January. Last week, both the gold price and the stock
Hit gold.
But he's not going to talk about it.
a new all-time high. And that's interesting because economists and traders will normally say gold goes up when the economy is weak and stocks go up when the economy is strong. But both of these things have gone up massively. And I predicted this at the beginning of COVID. And in my opinion, the reason for that is the government has given out a huge amount of money. That has ended up being held by rich individuals. It's hundreds of thousands of pounds for every rich individual. They tend to buy assets. You know, they buy all kinds of assets. They'll buy stocks and property and gold. So all asset prices go up. Doesn't matter whether the economy is bad or good, simply because these guys have so much money. The flip side of it is the government is in a huge amount of debt. Partially that's QE funded. We'll do that in the next video. But they have to pay interest to the rich every single month. And for that reason, that is why they're saying we can't afford to do things. And both of these things have consequences. The debt of the government hurts public services and it hurts public sector pay, creates austerity. But the credit of the rich pushes up asset prices and it pushes up other prices too. This relates to the thing we said at the very beginning of this video, which is money is not real resources. So ultimately, money is a token that you use to buy real resources. So if these guys, the rich, have a ton of money now, they're going to buy more stuff, they're going to push the price up, and you, the ordinary person of this country, will get their stuff. So this amount of money, 700 billion, is unbelievably large. From the very beginning of COVID, I've said it will overwhelm basically all other economic effects until it is resolved. It won't be resolved. It doesn't look like it's going to be resolved. So the end result is prices will stay high. They won't come back down. Especially asset prices will continue to rise and living standards will continue to fall. So that's the video.
He's describing symptoms of central banking again without properly attributing the costs, which is central banking.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, well, as a Marxist, that makes sense. Again, central banking comes from Marxist playbook. So defend the central bank and blame the rich. That's what Marxism is.
Yeah. And so the solution that if he was accurate, the solution is we need a hard money standard because that prevents all of this from taking place.
Yeah. I mean, a Bitcoin standard specifically, I think, prevents the existence of the central bank. You just don't need it anymore. You don't need to centralize the custody of gold to scale it as a transactable medium of exchange globally because Bitcoin's non-physical. It's trivial to custody.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it. You know, you can still use custodians, but the operations are much smaller, much more decentralized. Whereas gold, heavy, physical, bulky, you need to centralize the custody, put a currency on top of it to make it transactable.
Yep.
But then that introduces the corruption. How do you trust the custodian problem, right? Which is proven to be an unsolvable problem across human history. Even if you can trust the custodian, you can't trust the government that will intervene with the custodian and either seize that gold or give themselves cheap loans, et cetera.
And with Bitcoin, the only people that can create new Bitcoin are the people that have a fast enough computing ASICs and or enough energy that can amass cheap, renewable, or whatever, enough energy to mine the coins.
Yeah, it's a game of productive output, right? You have to summon enough capital and operational expenditure being ASICs, operational being electricity, energy.
Yeah.
And then you can buy these lottery tickets, if you will, which is like casting your guess to what the answer to the mathematical puzzle will be. The puzzle resolves every 10 minutes and then the Bitcoin is awarded. So it's a capitalistic game.
Yes.
It drives energy prices lower.
Yep.
Energy is the number one input to every economic activity in the world. So it actually increases aggregate wealth by incentivizing the decline of energy prices.
Yes.
And it also, Bitcoin incentivizes an increase in productivity by virtue of it being very hard to steal and impossible to inflate. Therefore, it's less profitable for people to spend their time trying to steal from you or engage in central banking or currency counterfeiting, any of these activities, because they don't work on a Bitcoin standard. So all those people that would be trying to acquire wealth through coercive or deceptive means are now forced to get their ass to work and go do something that consumers want, right? Solve problems for consumers better, faster, cheaper, just like all other free market entrepreneurs.
Oh my gosh, it's such a big deal.
It's such a big deal.
It's like the biggest deal ever.
I think, yeah, it's
One of them. I don't know.
I think it's a crazy major innovation. But again, like, come on, dude. Stop talking like you understand what you're talking about. You're misleading so many people. Just say you're a Marxist. Just say, look, I believe in Marxism. I believe in tax the rich. I believe in central banking. Just tell the truth. And then we know what you're all about. And you're not gonna, but I guess that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Because when you're a Marxist, you want people to be confused and in the fold and buying into from each according to their ability to each according to their need. Like you need all of this confusion to perpetrate the ideological scam that you are selling people.
It's a bunch of noise.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.